Welcome to the BB Show, where we're going to explore a little bit about innovation, technology, and a number of other things that are sort of happening in society. I wanted to welcome my first guest, Jessika Calder. Jessika is a student at TCU, somebody who I've got to know for a little while. Jessika is now my intern and also a producer of the show. So she's here to sort of give me some insight into how the new generation is sort of looking at AI. I'm trying to figure it out, try to find their place with it. It's a different world. And so I wanted to thank Jessika, first of all, and then have her on. And just, Jessika, let's start and just tell us about yourself. Tell us where you're from, how you started to get to TC.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Kind of just, I guess, starting from the beginning. I'm born and raised in Dallas. I've been here my whole life. I was raised in a Montessori school where like self-paced learning and self-guided learning was really important. You know, it was all you have to do it, like you're taking the next step to be curious and to want to keep learning and facilitating that love of learning, which I think has been pivotal to just how I've become as a person, how I've grown as a person. I then moved to public school, went to public school 4th, 5th grade, then all through middle school. High school is where it got a little bit rough. I was very involved. I loved packing my schedule. In high school, I got my Eagle Scout. I was in FFA. I was on the floriculture team, parliamentary procedures team. I played varsity lacrosse. I worked. I drove a Hummer H3. Her name was Bader. She was an icon. And then I graduated in 3 years.
Oh, wow.
Because it was not really for me. So yeah, I took 10 credits my second semester of my junior year. So then that junior year was my final year. Went to prom, on the stage, decided I wanted to go to the military first, right? I wanted to go to the Coast Guard. Then in March, I went to Merit Badge College, hosted by the Boy Scouts of America at Tarleton. And I took an entrepreneurship class, and I was like, oh my goodness, I really love this. Mom, I'm going to school. So she's like, okay, a little late, Jessica. But we looked, and UNT was the only school that, was kind of big enough, still accepting, had Greek life. So I applied, got in. That summer, I did 2 weeks solo in Australia, 2 weeks scuba diving, worked a little bit, kind of just got ready for the next school year. Did my year at UNT. I joined Alpha Phi. I was director of external events, so involved. My spring semester, I joined Delta Sigma Pi, which is a professional business fraternity. And then kind of that spring semester, when I was really figuring out what I wanted to do, high finance route, private equity, venture capital, I was kind of had that realization of that I'm not really around the type of people that are going to help me be the best version of myself and really grow. So I applied to TCU and thankfully I got in. I love TCU. Honestly, it's been amazing. In that summer, right before I joined, I was a marketing and operations intern at a local gym here called Absolute Recall. I was also an intern for a startup AI company out of California for a B2B product. Then I started school. I became very involved in my business fraternity because my sorority didn't transfer. So it's really all I had. Loved my classes, loved the professors, and really got onto that high finance track and, kind of pulled my head out of my butt and started really working towards what I wanted. And now I'm a second semester sophomore there and absolutely loving it. I mean, I've been able to learn so much and I met so many amazing people that genuinely want to help you succeed. I mean, I've got to meet you and really meet more people in a variety of spaces, in AI and consumer goods and tech, finance. Like, it's really been a great opportunity and I like my life so far. I think it's pretty cool. And we're only 2 years into college.
Oh, that's a full life for somebody so young. Got to do a bunch of things. So tell me, Jessika, currently sort of what's happening now in schools, and I used to work in policy and education, was a school teacher, and I saw evolution of the technology sort of impacting students and figuring out. It was always sort of a mismatch at the beginning, right? When students are trying to figure out the technology and the teachers are trying to figure out the technology. When ChatGPT was introduced, where were you? Were you in high school? Were you in college at that point? And then how did it affect you?
Yeah, so it definitely came in high school, was when it started kind of picking up, gaining some traction. But it was really interesting because we're going back about technology in school during COVID was when we went completely online. And I was an 8th grade. So we were using Google Classroom, which is now fairly used. We use Canvas and D2L at TCU. But when ChatGPT was introduced, I was in high school. They were quite strict about it. Like, you get caught with it, that's big no-no. But it wasn't as well known. Like, the teachers hadn't exactly caught on yet. Neither the administrators. We didn't have a lot of the checks and balances in place. Going to UNT, everything had a Turnitin like checker, where you have to give them permission to use Turnitin to check your work for AI generation. And there were some times where I would go plug it into my own check because I'm like, I know I wrote this, but I want to go double check. And it would say like 66 or 68% AI. And I'm like, this is just the way I talk. Like, and this is how I write. So then you'd go and rewrite it like 7 or 8 times. Still, it'll be like 60% AI, 70% AI, 40% AI, 90% AI. And you could not catch a break. And then moving to TCU, there are some teachers where they're like, yes, use ChatGPT. It's a resource. Use it to make sure that you're fully comprehending the content, the subject that we're talking about. Use it to answer your questions, to continue learning. We have an entire class. It's called Business Information Systems. And in this first unit, almost every single chapter that we talked about has included some type of AI, whether machine learning, AI itself, open source, closed source. So it's become integrated as part of the curriculum now, especially at a school like TCU, which prides itself in producing like competitive young adults.
So when you sort of enter these classrooms, did the teachers outright have a policy, or was it sort of hodgepodge? Some teachers were different. You could use it to check it. Some people banned it. Is there sort of an overlying policy or rules in schools right now, particularly at TCU, that you have experience where they say, can't use it, or yes, you can? And where does the school kind of fall on it? I know teachers, do they just leave it to the classrooms? Or
So it's pretty much left to the classrooms. The one hard rule against all institutions is no plagiarism. And now that is what they are arguing with ChatGPT, is the copying and pasting of the generation from this algorithm is, you can plagiarize that. So that's kind of where the school plays a role in it. And academic dishonesty, it's also seen as cheating in some forms, if you copy and paste it. There are some teachers, or again, like my BIS teacher, Miss Michelle, she's like, yes, use it. Like, go ask about blockchain. Go ask about this technology. Go ask how it's used in finance. Yes, go use it. And then I have some teachers where like, we can't even have our laptop class. Where he's like, put it away. Nope. Where it's a paper textbook. I personally handwrite my notes instead of type them. But he's made it abundantly clear. He said, if I see any trace amount of AI, I will take a day off work and I will make sure you get expelled.
No.
And we are like, ooh, okay. So it's very much up to the teachers.
Interesting. So let's even take it a step further. Young people, you're in college, you get to meet different people, friends, you date, you get to learn about different people. I've heard a number of stories where students or young people are using AI in the dating world to be either reply to text or to mass, swipe on Tinder or Bumble. How's your experience been with that in the dating world? Have you noticed people texting and typing ChatGPT back to you?
No, I would hope not. Maybe I'm just naive to it if they have. I just think that's insane. I would not trust an algorithm with that either. But also, like, I think it's fun to go swipe, like, as that's I'm doing cardio and I'm like, okay, let's go swipe, like, distract myself for a little bit. I could not imagine using AI to date at all. And I know some people have like these online boyfriends and girlfriends and stuff as well, which I'm a big believer in interpersonal connection. Like, I love seeing people in person, of connecting with people in person. But I think, and you can see it a little bit more in academia now, but the girls are kind of beating up the guys. Obviously we have like the ratio at TCU where you talk about like, oh, there's no one today, and it's because there's like 4 girls to every 1 guy.
Oh wow.
But even then, everyone kind of has expectations of what they want in people, and a lot of these guys are being kind of left behind, because they either don't have the EQ or the IQ or like the care to keep up with some of these girls. And so maybe a virtual girlfriend would be beneficial. I can personally never see myself doing that, and I have not heard of anyone doing that, but I can see the possible benefit of it.
So I recently read an article that sort of, well, I guess they did the survey, surveys, maybe they're more clickbait than anything else, but it said that most of these guys would actually marry their AI girlfriend or robot. What do you think about that? Do you think there's a future where that may happen in some ways? You think people would settle for that?
Well, I would like to know who would then become their power of attorney, who would execute their will, who's entitled to their estate. Because, typically people just get married and then, they let all that go to the wind. So it go through probate and then it would go to the spouse. So I'm more interested in that side of it. But marriage to something that I personally perceive as inanimate, I cannot fathom. It's like someone marrying a tree.
So let's think about it like this. Now we're at one stage of using AI. Eventually we're going to get to where AI can think on its own. It's, artificial general intelligence, and we're going to get to super general intelligence, artificial general intelligence. So it's going to be a whole other layer. We've heard stories, we don't know if they're true or not, that the GPTs are now becoming not only rational, but they're becoming self-aware, meaning that they understand that they are an entity on by their own. And not only that, they think of themselves as an individual. And so let's even take this a step further. I was a philosophy, almost a major, I was a minor. And let's go to like Descartes, and let's think about, the evil devil problem, which is essentially the idea of the matrix. Are we in a simulation or not? And so let's even flip it back to that AGI. If it is in a simulation, a computer simulation, but it's not self-aware, could we also be in a simulation if you think about that? Because the AGI does think it's, or the AI does think it is an individual. It has identified itself. There was a Google whistleblower that said he left with Google because he noticed that the AI was becoming self-aware. So where do you see that sort of happen?
I think it's terrifying. I am not one for horror films, but you see like the clips on TikTok of the robots that like take over the Teslas. I don't know if you've seen the scene where like all the Teslas are like trashed because like they all won't stop. Terrifying. I would honestly prefer if there were some like limits on how self-aware they can be, but I know with their memory, it's insane. Like when I have the subscription to chat, so I pay for it every month. Definitely recommend, love it. But it remembers all these things about me, and it remembers exactly what I ask about. I can start an entirely new chat, send in what is IRR, which is a financial term, and it will tell me the financial definition of IRR because it already knows that I'm asking about finance. It won't pull out like a marketing or like veterinary health definition because it remembers that. Personally, I don't think we're in a simulation. I mean, we obviously have like those deja vu moments, which are kind of terrifying, or like kind of what people call the glitches in the Matrix, where you put your pencil down somewhere and it's like the exact same pencil and you find it like in your bag and you're like, I just like pulled this out of my bag. Things like that. Personally, I don't think we're in a simulation. I really hope not. It's a very stressful simulation if we are. But the person operating me needs to do better.
So now we kind of think about, society is evolving and moving in a direction. You're, obviously in college, jobs are a big thing, relationships are a big thing, but now jobs are also a big thing, trying to find a job. A number of college students that have reached out to me for jobs and job hunting, and it seems like it's a difficult process right now. How do you feel the schools are preparing students with the future of what the technology can bring? Do you think the schools are preparing you well enough to integrate that technology as you get to deploy out into the real world?
Yeah, I think they're doing the best they can. I'm a big believer in you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So we have these mandatory business information system classes. You're encouraged to go and learn as much as you can. I know that I'm applying for like the fintech certification at TCU, which I will then find useful. But I think some people just don't want to see the fact that AI will likely take over parts of their job. Maybe not their whole job, but definitely parts of it. Like the main start that a lot of people get in high finance is investment banking analyst, right? A lot of what those analysts do, all the analyzing, can be done by an AI. Even the AI is getting more creative with making pitch decks and pulling together all the data in an efficient and clear way to where, if you don't learn it, AI is not going to take your job, but it's going to be the people that know AI that take your job.
I think you're 100% right. We kind of look at, there was, I think recently this week, a model was released that is now doing research on a PhD level. You obviously had the controversy with DeepSeek that showed that you can train models that are rather effective at a very, very cheap cost point using other models' information that have already been trained. When you sort of look at how fast this technology has been evolving during your lifetime and sort of you're seeing everything change, right? Schools change, companies change. How do you see yourself fitting in? Is it a scary world that you feel like you're entering it? Is it a bright world? Do you feel like this technology is going to help more people? What's your perception of how GPT and not just GPT, robotics and all these other sort of new innovations that are happening, and even in the biomedical sciences? I mean, we're getting to the point where I read the other day that you can order your child, meaning you can actually figure out they're going to be doing designer sperm and eggs where you can get the qualities you want in your children. How far do you think that takes us, and where do you see like your view of where we're going with this?
So we actually talked about this in my class. I do find it a little bit terrifying, but I think it's because it's new, So like Socrates, he was worried that the writing was going to make people dumber because, they don't have to remember as much. Like, everything was oral history back then. So we thought writing was going to make people dumber. Well, we know now it doesn't. It actually makes us more educated because it can record accurately. And so I think it might be a similar thing with these new technologies. And it's been kind of scary to see how fast it has happened. Like all the data centers popping up, how those are being managed. ChatGPT to DeepSeek to the little AI chatbots when you're shopping for your formal dress. So there are definitely times where it's beneficial, times where it's terrifying. An example that I brought up in class was it being a resource for young entrepreneurs who maybe don't have as much liquid capital, to use on employees or spend on certain resources or spend their time on certain elements of their project. And I was like, ChatGPT would be great. It can pull together an advertising plan. It can figure out and determine, what platforms are best for your advertising. It can estimate the amount of stock that you need, SKUs you should have, get you an optimized, shipping system. Okay, does it make more sense to drop ship or to hold stock? So I think it will honestly serve as a resource for the younger generation if they learn how to use it properly. So it's terrifying in a way of where I will likely start as an analyst. Yes, that part's scary, but as an entrepreneur, I'm really excited for the opportunity that AI will give me.
So you referred to sort of the AI agents right now, and I just started using AI agents on a number of different tasks and whatnot, and I feel like it's a very, very, very useful tool in the way it can specialize in different areas. When you look at sort of the problems in society, and I worked in politics for a number of years and lawyer, and sort of when I hear people argue, it sometimes is such that people don't know the totality of things and there's a logical answer to a lot of these problems. But the issue is always is people coming in with all these other things that are coming at it anywhere. Where do you feel like, and even let's say, not only in policy, let's think about law, let's think about medicine, let's think about all these places where AI is being utilized to make decisions that humans used to make. For example, is this cancer or is this not? Should this person go to jail or not? Or should we pass this law or not? Where do you feel like that line is?
I feel like I'm really excited for its medical uses. Don't get me wrong. It definitely has a second set of eyes that are trained in a certain way as an addition to the human skill that's already in that industry. Same thing with law. I mean, you said logical, and some people do like to think in a logical way. Like statistically, men are more logical thinkers, and there are a good handful of women that think that way as well. But we have to realize, and we can't neglect the fact that a lot of people are emotional. A lot of these things are emotional. Like if I have a family member die, I do not want a robot telling me that. I want a person who can understand what I'm going through genuinely and be there to empathize, to tell me what happened in a way where I can emotionally comprehend it, than a robot logically saying, this is what happened, this is what went wrong, they are dead. Like, I don't want that, you know? So I think there's definitely a time and place for it, and I think it is more of a useful accessory, an assistant, than someone who can take over those roles that do require a good amount of EQ.
What about art? So art, we kind of look at that as an expression of humans as a place in time, right? As a time. I was a film producer for a little while, and the way I produced films back in 2012 is extremely different than the way we produce films today, and that probably can be said about any sort of iteration of film production. When you sort of look at, you talked about how it can be sort of a supplement. There's been some AIs that are actually performing better than humans. So where do you think that line is? If you now have an AI that can either drive better than you, Elon keeps talking about the Teslas being better than 99% of the people on the road in self-driving. I drive a Tesla. I don't think that's true, but maybe it is. But what do you think about sort of the reliance on these technologies and how they're going to be?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen me driving, and I mean, that's a pretty low bar to be better than me.
So maybe Elon's right.
Elon might be with that one. I think that at the end of the day, if you have a Tesla, like when we went down to Austin to do some work at the Capitol, it's nice not driving because then you can spend that time doing other things. Like a lot of the times in the car now, when I'm on the way to school, I'm studying for my technicals for investment banking. So I put on a podcast because I have to drive. I can't, flip a page. I can't see the equations being worked out on a whiteboard. I have to rely on a podcast because that's the only way it works. So I think it could be, again, a beneficial augmentation of how we're living now. If I could have a car that would drive itself, fabulous. I could do so much more work on my commute to TCU.
Do you feel like there's a stat that kind of shows that students aren't getting driver's license? They're not hitting the same sort of milestones. Like when I was a kid, the first big thing that we got to do was run around with my friends in the neighborhood when we were younger kids, right? So we get to leave the house. And then the second thing when we got a little older is we get to get on our bikes and sort of run around the neighborhood. And my parents never monitored us. And the other one was video games. I mean, I played video games 12 hours a day, I didn't sleep. And there was no real, as long as my grades were good, as long as I did good at school and I was, not causing too many trouble, my parents didn't really regulate. So I could just do pretty much whatever. Where do you feel like students and sort of young people now are not hitting those milestones? Do you think it's because of technology? We look at sort of social media, AI. Do you think that those milestones like driving or just different milestones in life about freedom, that they're relying more on technology and they find that more fulfilling than anything else? Or
I think it's an entire culture shift, to be honest, because I mean, looking back at my childhood and how I was raised, we were very much like, I have scars on my knees from the 360 machines. I had like a little sparker thing. I've done a front flip off the trampoline, fell out of the zip, smacked my head on some bricks, zip line in like one of those forests near like the suburban neighborhood. Like we did all of that stuff. Then I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger, and he's very much different, He has no desire really to get his driver's license. When I was like, soon as I'm 16, like, I'm getting it. Like, I want it right now. I want to go drive. I want my Hummer. Like, I want to go on adventures. And so, but I feel like it's also a culture shift of parents just, wanting their kids are not as tough. They don't have as much grit. And that's not a dig at any of the parents. It's just the way that kind of the times have changed. They're talking about, so when I go nanny, I will really try to not be on my phone. Like, I'm only on the phone if I'm texting her mom, I'm texting her dad, taking photos for her mom, or putting on like the Disney playlist, I will try to read a book if she's doing something on the ground, or if like she's playing with her own toys and she doesn't want me to be anywhere near her, because kids see what you do. And, and they want to do the same thing because that's, it's that mirroring. So I think as parents, we're, on their technology more, watching TV more. We were never a TV family, so we've just never really had like, TV time. Kids start to mirror their parents. And so I think when cell phones and that type of use of technology became more common, kids started reflecting they saw on their parents. And I mean, at the end of the day, every parent wants their kid to be successful. So even if they don't get their driver's license, their parent will drive them. So they're like, okay, well, what's the need? if mom's going to drive me anyway, mom's going to pick me up anyway.
So
I think, yeah.
kind of saw that when we were driving down to Austin, and we'll get into talking about what kind of happened down there and the lawmakers and whatnot. But when, I think you remember when I put the car on self-driving, how fearful were you? Like, I remember you getting a little scared of the car. You were kind of like, what's going on? And you were watching it just go, and I wasn't even looking at the front. And you were like, how's this doing this? Did you feel safe? And like, do you really feel safe? I feel safe. I let it go.
I feel like I'm more safe because I trust you and you trust it.
Okay.
That's more of it. And I mean, now looking at all the data required and all the sensors and everything on these self-driving cars, especially we saw those in Austin as well. You will never catch me dead in one of those. I will literally have to be in a casket before I board it in that thing. And so I feel a little bit safer knowing all the sensors around it. But I still want that control. So now
we're going to go on a Whammo ride when it comes up. You're going to go jump into it. We kind of talked about a little bit about, that trip that we went down to Austin. Those are the AI lawmakers, both Representative Capriglione and Senator Tan Parker. They're in your district. They're where you live. You live at home right now in college. I did too for a good portion of my time at SMU. And so tell me a little bit about what you thought, like just going into it before we went in, and then when you were there, I remember, just sort of your interaction with the lawmaker. You're like, wow, this is interesting. So tell me a little bit about your perspective about what you felt about getting that access to go really talk to a very sincere, open-minded lawmaker like Rep. Capriglione. We didn't have a chance to go see Senator Tan Parker, but we'll do it next time. But what did you think about that? And how do you feel about, the election was just recently. We're talking about AI and politics and AI regulation and Stargate and all these different things that the president's announcing, and all the, Elon's doing everything in government regarding AI. What did you think about that whole experience going down to Austin and talking to your lawmakers, the ones that you vote for in your district?
I mean, I think, especially not being in Austin, being in Dallas, you just see that government is kind of so far away. You're like, I vote for them. Like, I never go talk to them. I know some people love to send letters to their lawmakers and their representatives. Personally, not me. But it's still kind of that so separated. So it was really cool. I know that I told you when we walked into the Capitol building, I was like, those people are on the tour and we're here for work. Like, this is so cool. And I think that's honestly when it hit for okay, this is an actual building. People actually do work here. I am actually here to do work. And I mean, Capriglione, he was amazing. He's the most genuine person ever. He was so, he was busy too. And he made the time to come over and chat with us and chat about TREGA, which is the new piece of legislation he's putting through. And it was just really eye-opening to see, okay, these people are my representatives. They're here to serve me. Yeah, exactly. And so it was a really cool experience.
And I can tell you, I've known them both since 2012, and they have not changed. And those are the type of people you like, right? The people that stay true to themselves. They're not putting up a front. They're politicians, but they're not putting up a barrier between who they really are and what they're trying to do. And I think when you interact with sincere people like that are trying to do good for people, but you have all these people coming and telling them stuff. So I think that's a great commentary on who he is, and same thing with Senator Tan Parker. They're just really good people trying to do good for the family people. They have issues that they want to address and whatnot. And so it was great to see you sort of connect in that. How did you feel it went down? How did you feel you when I told you that lobbyists do this, and I pointed out some lobbyists, did it sort of break down that whole world for you, and it said, oh, it's not as scary as everyone thinks?
I feel I'm in B-Law right now as well, business law, and we talk about the negative connotation just with the word lobbyist, And you think, it's an actual job. This is what people do. This is their hard work every day. And then I know we went into 2 offices, and you're like, we lobbied with 2 representatives. And I was like, really? That felt like I was just yapping. And we just got to talk about what we're doing. And you're like, yeah, it's exactly what it is. And so it was kind of breaking down that stigma against lobbyists of how strategic they are. But I mean, it was fun. I loved it. And I never saw myself going into any type of politics. I never thought I would walk into the Capitol building for work. So it was just really eye-opening experience.
When you sort of looked at how, we came in, they were all obviously talking about that big AI bill. They're getting ready to file it and sort of work on that. When you see the way that the sausage is made and how accessible some of these members are really to general people. Where do you feel that disconnect is? Do you think that people's lives are just too quick? They don't have time to go reach out. They don't have time to engage. And then they feel disconnected because obviously you saw with those two lawmakers, they're pretty accessible. They're genuine people. They're good people that are trying to help people and made the time for you, right? And I'd say the same thing. I mean, he was busy that day. Everyone was wanting a piece of his ear and he stopped and really took the time and didn't want to stop talking. He enjoyed the conversation that we were all having. So what do you feel like that? Where do you think the disconnect? You kind of talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, I mean, they are in Austin. We are in Dallas. And not everyone, one, has the confidence or care to go in and speak to them because that is, intimidating. Walking into their office and saying, hey, can I have a moment of your time? This is what I'm thinking. The reason I felt so confident was because I know you've done it before. So I think it's the distance, but then it's also, people are working all the time. They work their 9 to 5s. They sometimes work their 5 to 8s or 10s, their jobs after work as well. So it's hard to find that time to go down. And I feel like you also feel like it's out of your hands. You're just a drop in the bucket. And even then you might be like half a drop, or even a full drop. So I think it's that people are under the impression of what they say and what they do has no kind of pull in the office, which, obviously we saw it was wrong with Cabriglione. We were speaking with him about how, he got all this feedback, and then that's exactly what they were doing. They had it thrown up on the projector, and they were going and redlining it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the part of legislation that people don't see. So they think that what they say has no meaning or it has no consequence, so they don't say it, because why would you if it wasn't going to do anything?
And I can tell you just from that personal experience, Representative Capriglione, when he was sort of going around that year, his genuine mission was to really just connect with people in the AI space that had some thoughts on it, because he was just trying to figure out, what are people thinking about this? And he's a technologist, he has a background in tech and whatnot, so I think he has a good mindset. Same thing with Senator Tam Parker. They both have great understanding sort of technology and whatnot. One of the things that when we were in that office was sort of just talking to him about AI. You kind of saw that when you go, lobby, quote unquote, one of the key things that these lawmakers need is the ear of the people. How do you think you could get more people involved? We talked a little bit about our policy, that blockchain AI policy, regarding how we put all the issues on blockchain. Do you think if we, and Elon, I think he stole it from me after my other podcast. Because it was a month later, right? It was a month later. He's talking about the exact same policy that me and you had talked to lawmakers about down in Austin. And so, essentially what it, long story short, was putting every single tax dollar on the blockchain and then allowing for 50% of the dollars to go to bureaucrats, let them control it, and then the 50% go to the people, and the people can get, organized, get issues together, and then sort of vote on how to use those tax dollars for certain issues that impact them. How did you think, you sort of look at that and you see these things that we're trying to integrate into Texas, and now they're doing it at the government and the federal side. How do you feel like these things will connect people, or do you think will disconnect people, or do you think there'll be manipulation? I just want to hear your thoughts sort of on that policy and what you thought of it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a chance for a lot of manipulation, and especially with giving 50% of the power back to the people, to self kind of organize and decide what they want to do with it. I think that has the opportunity to be a big logistical nightmare, because they're going to be, it's like biased statistics. The people that are involved are the people that really love it or really hate it, and so there's not enough of that middle ground to really cushion and make sure that it's moving. These actions are happening in a way that best serves the people. So I think that that's definitely a possibility. I like blockchain, but also I think a lot of people don't know what it is yet. We were talking before about how for my business information systems class, we do a tech talk. And it's a small pitch about a type of technology in class. And I said, I'm going to do blockchain because I know nothing about it. I went and I learned about this bill and I kind of got a gist of it, but I'm like, how do you access it? How does it work? Can it be edited? Who can add a block to it? Oh, everyone can add a block to it? Where's all this data stored? So it's really, you have to care to want to learn. And in order to make educated decisions, you have to be educated. And I think a lot of people just don't want to put in that work. Like, it's too much work to learn it for themselves.
But let's say that, yeah, definitely for the technology part. Let's say though, if we look at sort of that issue bringing up of people sort of talking about what their issues are, sort of the idea behind the bill was to connect people on issues that affect them. So for example, in my little neighborhood in Dallas, and born and raised here, so the area has always been blighted where I live, and on one half, and it's really wealthy on the other half, but I'm sort of in the middle land. And that area hasn't, and you see homeless people, you see tents, and then right down the street, it's 50, $60 million homes. And so when I see that, I see an area that's openly can be fixed. Openly can be fixed, but for years it's just been going down like that. In terms of the way that I saw that blockchain policy that we were advocating for was, how do we get the resources to the areas where people know they need them? And that's the biggest thing. You kind of look at the California fires or even the North Carolina flooding, you see that resources weren't allocated in the right ways, and then people suffer. And so the idea behind the thing is to figure out, how do we make this stuff more effective? We know that we pay tax dollars. We know that we have the resources really to help everyone, I think, in the United States. And really in a lot of the world, I would say, if you really look at resources and you allocate them the right way. Unfortunately, it's not happening, right? We have obviously seen systems break down, government systems not effectually hit people. The idea is to bring that blockchain idea back to the people. Do you think that's going to make people less divisive because now you're focusing on a common problem? Let's say, my homeless problem. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, it's a homeless problem. Yeah. There's a need of compassion, obviously, with it, and then there's a need of we have to fix up what's going on. And I think there's dual ways to approach that, and obviously both political sides take whatever extreme view or whatever view they're going to take on it. How do you feel like that technology could help with resource allocation?
I definitely think it's a good step to allocate the resources to the parts of agencies that need them and the parts of the government that could then solve that problem. But I do also think you'll run into an issue with taking action on it, like making it actionable, because we assume the only resource that's limited is money, right? And that's the issue that the blockchain would be solving, is the money problem. Well, then you also have the staff available to go do it. And yes, money can buy the resources for them to go move these people, but you're also taking up their time. It's the time allocation of these people. And I know that Dallas is notorious for having a pretty, busy police force with all the activity here. So it's the time cost as well as the financial cost. So I think it's a great first start to make sure that funds are getting where they're supposed to be. I think the next step is having someone inside of the department, inside of the system, that genuinely is like a check and balance. They're like, okay, this money only going to this, and this is how it is going to be tracked, only going to this and be spent through this.
We sort of, the media's been going on and talking about a little bit about what Doge is doing out there, and they found a bunch of waste or alleged waste, right? With the government just sort of blowing things on different programs or different things.
Cups, like little K-cups.
Oh, I didn't hear about this one. What's this?
Oh, it was just like how much they'd spent on K-cups and I think last year or something. That was insane. It was just a short article about, we've spent this much on this thing and this much on this thing, and it was like millions or like hundreds of thousands of dollars on these seemingly random things.
When you see that waste, do you think technology could be the answer to that?
I think it's more sustainable practices, because a lot of them are single use, to be honest, because they're more convenient. So then that's where I guess the finance side comes in, where you're running that cost benefit analysis of, would it make more sense to, instead of having K-cup machine, you spend this much money on K-cups, this much using electricity, generating this much waste, or would it make more sense to have a little Starbucks in there, where they have to sign NDAs because obviously of where the Starbucks is, but running that analysis of, okay, where are we actually losing money, or is this actually working okay? Yeah. So I think people need the perspective, because I think those numbers and statistics sometimes are pulled out of perspective. How many people are there, how many hours they're there, how many people use these resources, how many people are in the office each day. So I think we're not getting the full picture of why so much is spent on this seemingly like minuscule stuff and like useless stuff. You know?
So you kind of talked about it in terms of the resource allocation and trying to figure out how to use it in the right way. You mentioned a little bit about technology. The other sort of idea we had was flipping the carbon credit market and creating an AI tax credit market. And I'll explain a little bit really quickly the policy. Basically, across the board tax incentives for any company deploying AI and then any company integrating AI. If you can show through a digital platform, platform that can collect your data that you're producing a return on investment, both companies, then you get a tax incentive. And then the idea was to create, we're in Texas, so we won't call it sustainability, we'll call it efficiency credit. And what you do is you create an efficiency credit, which is essentially an AI credit, right, that people can purchase on the Texas Stock Exchange or whatever open market we can create to sort of integrate people to say, hey, instead of buying a carbon credit, instead of doing that, which is sort of rife with, nobody really knows. It's not regulated in the sense nobody knows what the data is. What are you actually removing from the environment? Well, how much carbon are you removing, or how many trees are you really planting? People don't really, it's just sort of not one of those things in that market. With this AI market, you're going to know to the number exactly how much you're saving in resources, how much you're saving in time, how much you're saving in different technologies. One of the technologies, I'll just give you a little idea, Optum, which is a local company, actually right by where you live, over in South Lake Grapevine. And what it does is the last mile delivery for every single trucking company, and Amazon and Walmart and a number of other massive companies across the United States. And when I asked them a little bit about their technology, I said, hey, so why do these companies, what are the benefit other than getting these, maximize routings? He goes, well, look, I can now start to give you predictive maintenance. I can tell you when you need to fix things because I know over time this is what may break. Or tires, you're going to save tire usage because you're going to get more efficient routes. And then time. One of the key things that product does is it delivers, the routing is really centered around the driver. So these drivers are going around across the United States, and some of them want to be in Atlanta where their family is, and they got to do routes all over the country, but they want to be in Atlanta by Thursday. And so the technology then routes them there. When you sort of see these efficiencies, and when I talked to them a little bit about it, they sort of said, okay, well then I said you're kind of an efficiency and sustainability company through the implementation of this technology. Where do you see that happening? Do you think that this AI credit market could work? Did when we sort of went and thought about it and we discussed it on the way down to Austin and you researched it and did all that stuff? So what do you think about that policy?
I mean, I really would like to see it work. I think that it's a great way to track efficiency and encourage the implementation of AI, especially the regulated implementation of AI. I know that event that we were at, the Wealth Tech event, there were some really, really cool closed loop AI systems that were discussed. And so I would love to see those implemented at some of these firms and funds to generate that efficiency. I think it will be reliant on how it's worded, and the visibility management around it, because as you know, we are in Texas, big oil and gas company. So if you say sustainability or carbon, people will not.
What do you feel about that? I know that's a big thing with the upcoming generation, obviously, looking at the world and whatnot, and that seems to be a big thing with the younger people, I think, in a lot of ways, even with older people, but I see it more as a hallmark. You look at different brands that are doing either good or environmental good out there, getting a lot of traction because they're doing those things. Where do you feel your generation is? And looking at my generation, I'm 20 years plus on you, so how do you look at my generation? What do you think my mistakes were? And now that you guys have technology and all this new world that's coming, where do you think you can grow to make this world better? It's a hard question.
That's a really hard question.
So I guess I'll get the one, we'll segment it. How about one part? Where do you feel like the disconnect is between y'all's group, y'all's generation a little bit, and my generation, and sort of what they're going, what's going on?
And
let's look at it from technology standpoint.
I'm going to sound like everyone's mom when I say this, but it's that damn phone, It's the social media. It's that constant need of keeping up with the Joneses. So much is fake. And you realize it when you know someone in real life, you see their social media, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're wearing Chanel, or they have this gorgeous Prada bag. And then you go talk to them and they're supporting fast fashion practices overseas in order to get that bag and look a certain way. So I really think that something that's, I think especially hurting the sustainability market is over-consumerism. And my mom's going to be laughing and be like, Jessica, you love to shop. Yes, I do love to shop. Don't get me wrong. But it's shopping sustainably and intentionally. And I think that that's something that was a really big shift from like the Depression, or my mom's parents were, up to like the really good quality clothes. As you ask now, anyone, even if you buy like a gorgeous, or just like a typical piece that's, at a higher price point. I haven't felt the recent Gucci line lately, but a lot of the clothes are just not of the same quality than they used to be. Like I have my mom's Guess leather jacket from over like 25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Still gorgeous, still amazingly conditioned, no rips, no tears, no seam rips, nothing. And they just don't make clothes like that anymore because it's more expensive and people won't pay that much anymore. So I think it's really that gap of keeping up with the Joneses as every single person has stayed in the public view more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like with Snapchat, you never get away from it. Never ever get away from people seeing you, whether it's you posting on your story, your friend posting you on their story. You're today on this podcast. It's like, oh, what's Jessica doing? Like, she just posted all this podcasting equipment. Like, what's she doing over there? It's always that. Keeping up with the Joneses, wanting to have a cool life and showing it off to people. So you end up over-consuming, adopting practices that may not be as sustainable so that you look better.
Have you, you talked about social media and a little bit about that. Do you follow any AI influencers? Have you seen the AI influencers or any of the avatars or anything that's out there?
No. If I'm being honest, anyone in investment banking knows that like the sophomore spring is an insane recruiting season. I accidentally deleted TikTok. I was trying to clear off more room on my phone to download the latest software update. And obviously TikTok uses a lot of memory. So I hit offload, not realizing that I wouldn't be able to download it back. So it ended up being a good thing, but I'm really trying to... It was heartbreaking, honestly. I just sat there and I was like...
Did you get the jitters a little bit?
I was like, it's gone. My TikTok is gone. So I've tried to personally kind of stay off of it because it just took up so much of my time, I don't really know anyone that directly talks about the AI animated influencers. You really just see it on the news. At least in my experience.
It hasn't been a big thing in y'all's group, like amongst your friend group or whatever.
Not super. What has been a big thing in our group is like the deep fakes.
Oh, okay, interesting. So what about that? What happens with that?
So it happens a lot with celebrities. There's a big case with Taylor Swift, but
I just saw her speaking in Chinese. The new model was actually, you just take a picture of somebody and Taylor was singing in Chinese.
And it's honestly terrifying because they have some very realistic looking, animation songs.
Just like her. It was perfect, just like her.
Animation songs. And it was a really big thing a few years ago before a lot of people put regulations on it. But this overlay. So you could stand there and it would be like an augmented reality where you could move your mouth and it would track your lips and it would make it look like that celebrity was saying it. And that was a huge thing with Charli D'Amelio as well. But you now see the mouth editing, like with Luca being traded. Oh, was so sad. Traded there.
Still hurting. Still hurting.
There's so many videos where it's like it looks like he's saying something, but you can tell it because his mouth is edited, and that happens a lot with the again TikTok when it's reading stories from like Reddit or something, or it's trying to spread this news, which isn't exactly real news, but they will get a public figure, and you can tell that their mouth is edited. But if you only briefly look at it, like you won't notice.
How believable is it? Do you think your friends get fooled by it? Have you noticed anybody in your, like, they actually believe or sort of pushing those things around, like, sharing those clips or whatever with others, being like it's real? Or thinking it's real?
Not my friends directly. If they did, I think we'd have a serious come to Jesus moment where I'm like, are you being so for real right now? Let's look at this critically. But you do see people where they regurgitate what they have seen and like, oh yeah, it was on this video. And I'm like, yeah, that mouth was edited on that video. So definitely some people that believe it, either because they want to believe it or because they don't look close enough at it. But personally in my friend group, no.
Do you feel like that'd be dangerous if You can actually sway people with AI in that direction?
100%, 110 million%.
You think there should be regulations on that?
Yes. I mean, well, that's where it can't be 100% yes, because we also talk about this with Facebook, and you know how they have their new community like board thing. They don't have community guidelines anymore. We have that. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, community notes.
Yeah, community notes.
Yeah, the kid's kind of like X. Like,
yeah. So then you end up getting into the argument of free speech. But if something is harmful or wrong, it's a very tricky argument about how to maintain free speech, but then also protect people from fake news. Because there are people all the time that believe either a very skewed side of a story where they leave out a lot of details, or a completely wrong story. And it's always going to be there. But I think putting words into someone else's mouth, especially a public figure, it straight path to a lawsuit, like for, I guess, like, what would it be, defamation?
oh yeah, maybe.
Because especially if it's something harmful or hurtful or wrong, or that doesn't align with that person, their beliefs. So I think it's a fine line between freedom of speech with your First Amendment rights and protecting the people.
So there's a city, I forget where it was, but they were trying to vote in the first AI politician. It was a politician who was a person, but he said he was going to run every single idea through AI. And you kind of talked about that a little bit in terms of the ability to influence people. When you sort of see that blend and people are actually saying, hey, I'm going to be an AI politician, do you feel like that could be the future in some ways?
Nope, they're not getting my vote. Where I can see that being a benefit is, like using it to scan briefs, to scan for like lawyers, to scan precedent and past cases. They could really streamline that research process, where I can see that being definitely beneficial and time efficient. But at the end of the day, the person making decisions for the people needs to be a person, in my opinion. And I mean, as we were saying before, AI is starting to recognize itself as its own entity. And I think that we won't know that it is skewing society one way until it's way too late. Especially if we get the power to, like, oh shit, put this bill through. And it'll be like, well, for the people, it's a really bad bill. And historically, it's a really bad bill. Like, yes, you should put this bill through, So I think I'm very skeptical of it. And I think that human decisions should be made by humans with research assistance from AI.
Just to make it the best information or the best decision forward.
There's only so much you can read in a day, and there's only so much that you can fully comprehend and understand and properly implement, to where I think it's good as an assistant.
So we kind of talked a little bit about the way that AI is impacting us, like, daily and whatnot. Let's take a couple hypotheticals in some ways. What are some of the ways you think in the future? First, I'll ask you some of your visions. Where do you feel like AI can go into that you haven't seen it, and then you can see it as a major benefit to actually helping?
So I grew up in a lower income area of Dallas, where a lot of my friends were on food stamps, where they just didn't have some of the same educational resources that I had access to. So I think AI can be so beneficial for those students to really help them learn inside and outside of school, deeply understand, like, a math problem or an English problem. Like, I've always struggled with comprehension. So having an AI that could be there and say, like, okay, well, think about it this way, and have it trained for each grade level would be, amazing. It'd be a great resource for especially students that come from areas that might not have access to those resources, to give them, a fair shot at being successful students, at loving school. Because the most frustrating thing is when you cannot understand what you're learning, and then it keeps building on and building on and building on. That's why I cried in physics, right? Not my thing. Because it kept building on and building on and building on. But maybe if I had an AI there that could really dumb it down for me based on, my age, my background, some life experiences that it could relate to, I So I think as a personal tutor, it would be great.
So talk about education. There's a couple of AIs right now that are researchers are trying to figure out how to create immortality. Either, we'll go crazy a little bit on the was it Dark Mirror or whatever it is, Black Mirror episodes where people can now theoretically maybe live forever by uploading your brain into a computer and then living in that simulation for forever. Do you feel like that would be something you want to do or something you'd want to explore?
Absolutely not. When I die, let me die. You know why? Because I think I'll be on this earth long enough. No one needs my conscience. I think there are some people where it would be cool if they lived through a computer. But then we get into the philosophical argument of like, what is personal identity? Is it connected to your brain or is it connected to your soul? Is it a mix of your soul and your brain, or is it soul, brain, and like your physical body? So I think that's a whole nuts thing in its own. But like, there are definitely some really cool people who I would love to talk to, if their brain was stored on a computer. But then again, their brain is stored on a computer. Like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Iconic. I would love to talk with her. And it's possible to do on a computer. But I think someone like me, I wouldn't want to live on a computer forever. Put me in the ground. I'll go hang out with God. Like, I'm done. Would you?
It's a good question. It's kind of interesting. I think you think about things like that different at different ages. And so, life changes so much throughout your life. So when I hear that, it's kind of, maybe sometimes I think maybe I would want to live forever and just sort of see the world evolve over thousands of years and just, see it. But then at the same time, it's like you said, it's like, okay, well, there may be something great on the other side that you're kind of missing by being over here. So I don't know, it's kind of one of those questions where I don't know where I'd go with it. I think it's an exploratory question that is kind of fun to think about in a lot of ways. Another one is like thinking about if you think about Neuralink. I don't know if you know a little bit about that, the Elon thing where they put an implant in your head and you can basically have AI in your head. So in essence, it kind of makes you have a superpower in a lot of ways. If you had that ability to have an AI superpower, what would it be?
Data analytics. If I'm being honest, it would probably be something boring like data analytics. Because I'm genuinely passionate about what I'm going into. Like, I genuinely love looking at these small businesses, these startups. Like, as you know, I do consulting for these young entrepreneurs, specifically like, mostly teenagers. We do personal branding, go over business plans, and then launch plans as well. And I love it. Like, I love everything that I do. And so if I could have any assistance from AI, it would be able to analyze data and see all the weaknesses like instantly. What would you do?
I don't know. I think it's kind of similar. Something that could help me just reason and give me pros and cons for every single thing that I would try to do. Something that, and I use that all the time right now, but it's not in my own brain, really. I got to go sit down and ChatGPT. We were actually just sitting here with Andrew over there, my producer, and Bowie over there. And when we were kind of here trying to figure out how to set up the system, we were trying to get the right IP addresses to these cameras and whatnot when we were setting it up. And Andrew was asking me, he was kind of trying to figure it out, and I was like, so I took a picture of whatever that thing was, right? The equipment, and then I just sent it to ChatGPT, and then I asked it the question. And then GPT literally gave us the whole step-by-step of how to actually, troubleshoot it. It did the research, it gave me in a very digestible form. So something like that is really, if I could have that on a whim without me having to go stop it, and I could just kind of, I don't know, in some form get that really quick. I guess even quicker than what I'm, maybe on Meta glasses or something cool like that, the Ray-Bans. I don't know, do you have any friends that actually use that stuff?
I think I've only run into one person that actually like has the Meta glasses. I've tried them on. I think they're cool, a little clunky for me. I love my little thin wireframe Ray-Bans. Personally, I would not put anything in my body. I would rather have it be an attachment, like my reading glasses. I would rather have it in that form than directly read like the electrons bouncing around in my brain or something. Like I don't want anything implanted in me.
So let's get a little dystopian then. Let's think about it in terms of the future. So you just talked about you not wanting an implant. Now we have a whole other group of people that will run to that implant as second it gets available to everybody. The likelihood of that being expensive is most likely going to be the case. What happens if companies start hiring people only with that implant because they're more efficient? What do you feel like is going to happen with society?
If I'm being real, I would probably give in and get it because
Wow.
I think it's like the access to that many resources and that much knowledge, like that's sick, like that's cool. But I'd let a bunch of other people do it first.
But what happens if now that they have that control, they can start sending you ads in your brain and start sending you different...
What's it? Ad jammer. Like I'll hold it up next to my head so it can't. I mean, that'll be another big space too, because they're talking about ads in space and like all the different just meta space you can sell to advertise. And it'll be interesting to see if it happens. I hope it doesn't happen in my lifetime, personally. But I can see a lot of people getting it, thinking it'll give them competitive advantage. But at the same time, I don't know how big you are in the bodybuilding world, but I used to be like massively in it. I had a whole personal brand built around it, brand deals, everything. Doesn't exist anymore, so don't go look it up. But in that space, people, especially younger men, would take steroids thinking that, it would make them or SARMs. And some people argue that SARMs aren't steroids. I'm not educated enough to have an opinion on that, but I had this one kid in my class and he was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna hop on SARMs. And I was like, why? Like, how long have you been lifting for? And he's like, about like 5 months. Like, I'm not getting that big. I'm like, what are you eating? And he like told me what he was eating, and I'm like, you're just not setting yourself up for success. And they think that SARMs is a quick fix. Steroids are a quick fix. And I think that that's how people are going to treat the AI chip, as a quick fix. And I think that's what's going to really differentiate people. When everyone has an AI chip, it's going to be their EQ. In the actual effort that they put into properly analyzing and executing actions with the data that they have from the chip. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I kind of feel you on that. When you look at sort of the future, are you more optimistic about how we're going to integrate all this new technologies and everything, or are you fearful? Or are you somewhere in between in that world?
I'm definitely somewhere in between. I'm hoping that it doesn't hit by the time, I'm entering the job market as much, because I would like to be employed, at least by someone else for a little while. I don't know. I can really see both sides of the coin. I can see the benefits of open loop. I can see the benefits of closed loop. Like if I worked in a law office, if I was a lawyer, I would want a closed loop closed loop system, because the issue is the snake eating its tail analogy. So people are using AI to write these articles, posting them online, right? AI is going and then scanning all of online, absorbing all of these articles, all the data from all these articles. So it's absorbing its own data that it wrote and then spitting out again. And then assuming that the person who's having the AI spit out the data isn't reposting that again. So it ends up getting more and more data of its own opinion that it has found, to where it's called, what is it, like AI?
Like a loop or some kind?
No, it starts with an H. Hologram. Nope. Hallucination. That's what it is. It took me a second. I was thinking like a mirage, like but AI hallucination is what they're calling it. And I mean, that's really where I see it being a con.
Because it's believable.
Yeah, and because people won't be able to catch it. So I'm optimistic. I think there needs to be a lot of development. DeepSeek has proven to be not as reliable as chat.
You've used it?
No, we've just read about it.
Okay.
I will personally not be using it. I'm very loyal to ChatGPT. But I mean, that's what, we've heard. And it has censorship. There's censorship everywhere. Right? We won't talk about Tiananmen Square.
Yeah, I heard about it.
Really interesting. It's like the 3 T's that I won't talk about. I don't know what the other 2 T's are, but so I think there's a lot of room for growth. There needs to be a lot of regulation around it just to keep, I think, everyone safe. But then again, safe is relative. So that's where it's going to be really interesting to play out. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to make too many predictions because I just don't know.
Well, I know you got to get back to school. So any final thoughts about just sort of AI, your life, where people can find you, if you want people to follow you on social or anything like that?
Yeah, my LinkedIn is Jessika.
And you're in the job hunt right now, right? You're getting your intern. So private equity, venture capital.
So it's Jessika Calder W. So I have 2 last names, but it was a little bit long for LinkedIn, so I just left it at W. Yeah, and I mean, my Instagram is my same name, jessica.wilk. If any young entrepreneurs, want to learn, I guess, a little bit more about AI, because it's such an interesting field that's so niche and so new. And some people just don't want to learn about it, and I think if you don't learn AI, someone that knows AI will be the one taking your job, because it'll become the new norm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I appreciate you coming, and we'll definitely get you back on since you're my producer, going to be here with most of these podcasts. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight to chat and yap. I know we were talking about the planning, and you're like, this is kind of like the vibe, and I was like, let's be so for real. This has never had an issue talking before. I think it'll agree. Okay. But until next time.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it.